Hi, I'm Coach Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups and life issues. If you got a story you want to share, book a session at writemac.com. The damp towel deal breaker. Hello, Mr. McCarthy. I'm 49 years old and have mostly kept to short-term relationships by choice. I've only had one bad breakup in my life. Wow, that's pretty good at 49 years old. That's probably the one breakup that makes it so you want short-term relationships, if I had to guess. Once you get burned by the stove, you don't play with the stove again. Once you get burned in a long-term relationship or where you care a lot, you usually don't want to get into another one. So I've had only one bad breakup in my life, and even that didn't hit me too hard. But recently I had another split, and I figured I'd share. Usually people like this, and I'm not saying this about you, you're good with women. You're good with attracting. You're probably an attractive individual. And so it's hard for you to set your limits on one person. Usually people that are unattractive or not good with getting a partner don't have this viewpoint. What you're doing is you're treating relationships like a sport. Okay? We were together nearly 2 years, living together for one. The moment that ended it, I was lying on the bed after a shower with a damp towel under me. She ripped the towel off in rage, yelling about how it would ruin the bed. I laughed. That made her even more angrier. The fight ended in silence. The next day I broke up with her. She was shocked. I just said, I don't need this. I walked out. So that seems like a shallow reason to break up. There probably was some more underlying arguments or fights there. I would add that if you're in serial monogamy relationships, and a lot of them are short-term, 2 years or under, how long in between the relationships are you taking? Okay, so you break up, and then do you get a new woman in a month, 2 months, 3 months? Because what that tells me is it's quantity over quality, and you're also just not lining up looking for a woman that really suits you and you suit them. It's like a deep connection. So when you're really good at attracting a partner, girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever it may be, in this case a girlfriend, like I said, it becomes sport, it becomes easy, but also you're not giving yourself enough time to find one that really lines up. It's like someone going to different jobs every 2 years when they're really not taking time to go, what would be a career? What can I do for 10, 20 years and not get tired of it and feel good about myself? My friends say I'm cold, even heartless for being so casual about the breakup. Sure, I'll miss her, but I've never had a problem attracting women, and I'm not going to start dealing with nonsense now. All right, so this is what you stand on. Seems like it doesn't hurt you that you're cold or heartless, and that you identify with the fact that you attract women easily. Okay? And that can be fun. So he writes, my question is, am I just an asshole, or is there perhaps I'll find a long-term relationship that actually sticks? I don't know you well enough to examine your assholeness, but if you're going to find a long-term relationship that actually sticks and you're 49 years old, you need to first write out and really sit with what you want. And are you a person that's going to attract what you want? So if you want a certain look, a certain income, a certain level of hobbies, well, then write that out. What it sounds like you're doing is you're just attracting women, which you think you're really good at, but you're not filtering for ones that really line up with you and you line up with them, right? Questions to reflect on. Is emotional detachment a strength or a sign of something unresolved? It depends on the individual. It depends on the individual situation. So emotional detachment can be a strength. It's just not something that you want to get out of balance and make it part of your identity, and that's all you do when you have a problem, right? There's a time for emotional detachment. So, for example, when you're in a relationship where you're being abused or verbally abused, or someone has stole money from you, I've heard of that before, there's a point where you need to emotionally detach from that person to break up with them, to go no contact, to not talk to them again, because they've hurt you repeatedly and they're not good for you, okay? But to have a small fight over a towel and then just call it curtains, is that a good thing? No, it's not good for long-term relationships, because getting in a fight over a damp towel is something that's solvable, okay? Number 2, can someone truly value a long-term relationship if they've never needed one? People don't need relationships. There's people out there that are asexual. There's people out there that like to live alone. So it's not needed. You need food, water, and sleep to live, right? So it's never needed. Is life better? Probably. That is within the individual, though. So, and you can take it a step further. People have long-term relationships with their pets, with their neighbors, with their friends. And so it might just be intimate or romantic relationships where someone might have a block or an uncomfortableness. And that's their thing to deal with. But it's never a need, and it shouldn't be a need, okay? It should be something that happens effortlessly. It should be something where you're both on board and you're growing together and you're going through some issues. And then when those issues become too much, you can come to a point where you're like, wow, it's no longer working for me or for you, and that's your time to make a decision. Number 3, what matters more in a relationship, being needed or being respected? That's a question for you, my friend. So what I would add to that is some people are big on winning arguments, and so they always need to win. If they don't win, they feel like they lost. And there's times to agree to disagree. There's times to seek to understand, not to be understood. And so within these relationships, within monogamous relationships, there's arguments, there's problems. You don't always have to win. Sometimes you can be neutral. Sometimes you can let it go. Sometimes you can agree to disagree. And sometimes you do need to win because you feel like you're 100% right. Okay? But if you always are that person that's stubborn and has to win, then you shouldn't be in a relationship. Because at some point, that'll grow old to the other person.